So we're going to go over to our network view. And you would have remembered from the character rigs that you were interacting with, they have a very complex and organized network view where you see pegs are connecting to each other and you see drawing modules connected to each other. The plan is we want to organize our network view, because what will happen is that all of the modules will cluster together in one area. And we're going to now organize them out. There's a feature where you have to go into your network view and to activate your network view so that we can order the network up. When you order the network up, you'll get a dialog box like this, and it will enable everything to spread out like that. You see, once everything is spread out like that, we're going to move the join modules side by side horizontally, so that they're laid out. This will enable us to peg them to each other. So here we can, as you can see, let me just bring this down because we don't need to look at the timeline. This is what we have right here in our network view. Everything, as I said, is clustered together, and it would be a lot of work to kind of move everything out like that. So what we can do now, you see this little empty area up here, you're going to right click on it. And you're going to go over to this here that says network view. And see, you get these additional features right here. And what the feature that we want is this button here that says order network up. So we're going to use the mouse and we're going to highlight and draw a box around everything in our network view, all of the modules, including our write and display. And you're going to click on this button here with the three little boxes connected together and the arrow pointing up. So when you click on that now, you're going to get another dialog box that has 25, 60, and 5. Don't worry about that. Just click OK. And what will happen is that it will automatically spread out all of your drawing modules in like this. So everything wouldn't be clustered together in one place. Now you will notice that you see all of the layers that we've cut up, they're on their own. Each is represented by a drawing module. So you notice that whenever I select the hand, you notice that this is being highlighted. When I select the arm, that is being highlighted, the torso. So each of these drawing modules is a representation of the drawing. So if I even click this little triangle box here, you can see that this torso box represents represents the torso. So I can actually view the preview for all of my drawings by clicking on the little triangle here. So what we're going to do now, and here's another thing to also note as well. When you zoom in here, you will notice that the view, the drawing, and this little area here, they're in red. Now you're wondering, why are they in red? Well, that is because they're currently turned off. So if I bring up my timeline view and look closely at your timeline here, notice that drawing, 4, little boy turn around, grid, and view, notice that the boxes here are not checked. You see, once you check the box right here, it automatically turns on the drawing module. If you deselect the tick here, it turns it off. So anytime you see your drawing modules highlighted as red, it is indicating that the drawing module is turned off. At the moment, we don't need these 4 drawing modules, so I'm going to kind of move them out of the way. Eventually, we're going to delete them, but for safety purposes, in case of if we need to go back and retrieve drawing information, we'll keep them for now. But notice that I moved them down. And here's another thing too as well to note. A shortcut. So for example, you know that the tick box, the check box, is what you use to turn on and off the module. However, if you select the module in your network view and you press the letter D, as in dog, D, it deactivates the module, which is the same thing as unticking the checkbox. If I press A, it activates the drawing module. So remember, D and A kind of turns it off. And here's another thing too as well. If I select the ears, if I select the ears with the transform tool in the camera view here and I press O, notice that it zooms in on the ear here, ear module right here. If I press D, see this turns red and it turns off the drawing module here. If I press A, it turns it back. So you can basically turn off and on by selecting different parts. So now we've gotten that out of the way. Let us now organize our network view. Here's another drawing mod. This is the color card, so we can move that down. I'm going to start moving them side. So I'm going to highlight these, move them over here. So it's just a matter of organizing the drawing module. So I'm going to move them side by side. Move it like that. This part is pretty much easy. You just select them and line them up side by side, because later on we're going to create a hierarchy structure where we peg them. I mean, there could have been a quicker way to do this, but this is the fastest. Well, this is the only way that I know to do it, like in terms of organizing them side by side. Just highlighting them like that. Just line them up side by side. They might be a little bit off, but don't worry about them in terms of their alignment. We can highlight these across, just center them over like that. So here we have all of our drawing modules side by side. So that is pretty much organizing your network view as indicated by this. All right. The next step in terms of after you've organized your drawing modules side by side is to peg the drawing modules. So when animating a cutout character, we animate using pegs. You see those green modules that we use to go up the hierarchy? Those are known as pegs. The pegs store the information for the animation, which is done using keyframes on your timeline. While the drawing modules store the information for the drawings, the pegs control the drawings like a puppet, or like how you would have the puppet on a string. So look at those pegs that are strings that enable you to control the different parts of the character. To create a peg for a drawing module, select the drawing module and press Ctrl P. That will create a peg for it. So let us note, so this is what it should look like, where each of these drawing modules, once you line them up side by side, each of them must have a peg. So I'm going to zoom in a bit closer here. And all you have to do is select the drawing module and hold down Control and press P. And what happens is that it creates a peg. Select the other one, Control and P. And you just go side by side, just Control P, select the other one, Control P, select the other module, Control P, Control P. You get the idea. So this step is also easy. I mean, the hardest part of when it comes to rigging is pretty much cutting up the character. But you know, the rest of it gets a bit easier. Once you have your drawing parts cut up, it's just a matter of creating the pegs for them. You're going to peg all of your drawing modules. You're probably wondering, isn't there an easier way to like peg your drawings together? Why not just highlight them like this and press Control P? You see, that is what will happen if you highlight all of them at once and press Control. All of them going to share the same peg, and we don't want that. So that is why you see I go to step by step and select each one of them and press Control P. So highlighting all of them and pressing Control P will just create one peg for all the drawing modules, when really we want each drawing module to have its own peg. So here we have all of our drawing modules pegged. And here's what I also want you to notice as well. Notice I'm currently on my transform tool here. If I select the drawing module, notice that it has a purple transform box around it. However, when you select the peg, that transform box turns to yellow. So that is how you can tell the difference of if you're on a drawing module or on a peg in your camera view here when you interact with it over here. So let's look at the next step. So once we have all of our drawing modules pegged, you will have to change the settings for your drawing modules by clicking on the yellow properties icon on the drawing module. Go to the advanced tab and tick off the animate using animation tool. Next, click on the drawing tab, then click on use embedded pivot and select apply embedded pivot on parent peg. So pretty much what we're going to do, we're going to do some modifications to the drawing module. So after we peg them, you see this little yellow box right here? That is called the properties icon. That gets you into the properties of that drawing module. And we're going to make a few settings. We're going to edit a few settings. And I'm going to explain why it is important for these settings to be changed. So in our network view, when we zoom in, here we have the little yellow box. You will also notice that the pegs also have that yellow properties box, but we're only going to interact with the drawing modules. So we click on this yellow box here, and you will notice that you have three types of tabs here. See, layer properties, and you notice it's a transform, drawing, and advance. So when you go over to the advanced tab, you're going to see under animation, animate using animation tools. So we're going to tick off this box. So it's noticed by default, it has a tick. We're going to click that off. Now, why did I do this? You see, the thing is, our keyframe information should be stored on our pegs. The drawing information should be stored on our drawing module. So like this drawing of this pupil is stored on our drawing module. Now, when we start to do our cutout animation and we start to apply keyframes along our timeline, what will happen is that if this is not ticked off, you will end up having a keyframe on the drawing, and you will have a keyframe for the peg. So we only want keyframes to be applied to the peg and not on the drawing module. So later on, I'm going to do a demonstration to show you what I mean by keyframe on the drawing module and keyframe on the peg. But we want to tick this off, animate using animation tool. Then we go over to our drawing tab. And down here where it says use embedded pivots, because after we set up our hierarchy structure in terms of parent-child relationship, we're going to have to set the pivots. Or we can set the pivots before we set up our hierarchy. But what has to be done, it says use embedded pivots. And here we have a drop-down box with 3 options. Here we says don't use embedded pivots, apply embedded pivots on parent peg, and apply embedded pivot on drawing layer. What we want is to apply embedded pivot on parent peg. I'll click on that. And then once that is done, we can close the layer properties. So why did I do that? Because if you look on the, let's look at the other pupil. Notice here that we see where the pivot position is. But if I press B and go up the hierarchy to the peg, the pivot is right here. You see, the thing is, when you create a peg for a drawing module, what happens is that the drawing module here has its own pivot position. So when you go up to the peg, the peg has its own pivot information where the pivot is right here. So for example, the pivot is here. When I select the peg, the pivot is here. When I select the drawing module, the pivot is here. We want so that when we select we want the pivot information for the drawing module to be applied to the peg. So that when we go up there, when we press B and jump up our hierarchy, it shares the same pivot position. So in this case, let me go over to the other eye that I just did. If I press B, let me go over. If I press B and go up the hierarchy, notice that the pivot position remains the same. However, if I go over here and I press B and go up the hierarchy, notice that the pivot position jumped to down here. So that is why we always go into the properties section here, go over to our advanced tab, and these, go here, use embedded pivots, and change this to apply embedded pivot to on parent peg, so that both the drawing module and the peg share the same information. And we also want to tick off the transform, the animate transform tool. So we're going to have to go into each of these modules and tick off this and change this to apply parent peg. You go to the next one. Here's another easy way to do this. I can add a layer properties tab here where's the camera. I can add a layer properties. So my layer properties will always be open. And whenever I select a drawing module, all I have to do is just change the settings to over here. So that one is done. That one is done. So this one now, you just tick that off. So it says view I02. You go over to here and then you go to apply embedded pivot. Click on this one. Change it. So apply embedded pivot on parent peg. The middle option. We're going to do that. We're going to have that settings for all of the modules. So this is the last one. So that setting has been done. So I can always switch over to my camera view here